Hey guys, so I want to talk a little bit about Zarya and particularly why I like Zarya in the solo lane. So firstly, I want to explain why do I pick Zarya. Zarya is a hero that in Hero League I currently have an 80% win rate with. In Team League I have a 75% win rate with her, and in unranked overall in Lifetime I've got like a 65% win rate with her. I pick Zarya as one of my favorite counter picks to burst mages as well as predictable damage. Like Jaina, who's going to throw a blizzard on the ground. You can step in the blizzard and take free damage, charging up your abilities and getting more powerful. But my favorite time to pick Zarya is against an Azmodan or against a Kel'Thuzad. I never really liked going against Kel'Thuzad. Kel'Thuzad to me was one of my least favorite heroes. Any hero that can blow up a hero by themselves is pretty scary and not that fun for the game, really. I mean, to watch a team fight that starts with one person just instantly blowing up two people isn't that fun because the next team fight is going to be a 3v5, so they're just going to walk away, they're going to soak, they're going to get camps, whatever, and that's boring. So I wanted to find out the best ways to counter a Kel'Thuzad, and I decided to go with Zarya as my option to counter Kel'Thuzad. Pretty much the goal is to, whenever the chain hits the first target, you immediately shield the first target, and then you step right up to him in front of anyone else, and then you put on your W, and then it pulls you immediately, does the full combo, and both you and the chain target have big shields on them, and you both stay alive. That was my initial thought, and I've been using it against Kel'Thuzads, and it's been working phenomenally. So I saw the Kel'Thuzad, and I figured I was last pick, we needed a solo laner, and I needed an answer to Kel'Thuzad combos, and that was going to be Zarya. So I decided to pick Zarya to counter both of these. Zarya is also a great counter to Azmodan. Azmodan's seen a lot in low ranks, and if you're quick to landing your abilities, you're going to see that Azmodan is essentially made useless this game because of me. So I will kind of show you as we go through the game that Azmodan is not even a hero on their team anymore. He's more of a hero on our team. So that answers the question of why I pick Zarya. And you might be asking yourself, well, Paradox, why do you pick Zarya like this when essentially there are other people who do things like that, like Tassadar, and why aren't you picking Zarya for her like wombo combos? Well, I personally don't worry about her ults at all. If I have a combo to follow up with Graviton Surge, I'll pick it up. And if I don't, then Expulsion Zone is pretty much getting free camps whenever you get into a camp or boss fight. And it's also a ridiculous amount of damage because this scales with your passive and it does a stupid amount of damage if you can get someone right up against a wall. One of the tricks I do on Zarya a lot, especially in the solo lane, is I like to get some easy charge by taking a step up to towers and then immediately using my W to get off just a little bit of charge. The next question that I would get asked is, why am I putting Zarya in a solo lane? Well, to answer that question, I like to use the example of like Blaze, where Blaze doesn't necessarily beat anyone in the solo lane. He just kind of holds his own, and then he brings a ton of utility as the games get further on. And I just kind of wanted to share that a little bit on the same idea with Zarya, is you have no sustain, which means that you can't really beat anyone in the solo lane. You do have some pretty cool tricks that you can do because your damage scales, so if the enemies put damage on you at the wrong time, then you can be really, really scary to them. But overall, you don't really beat most people. So outside of maps like Dragonshire or Braxis where you have to actually win in the solo lane to get anything, I think that Zarya is a really powerful character for the game because if you don't need to win the solo lane, she brings a lot to your team later. Now you're going to notice that my team gets really far behind in a lot of these earlier fights as we kind of just get stomped and my team just keeps suiciding for like almost no reason. Welcome to Hero League, I guess. So I'm going to fast forward through a lot of the early game as that's not what Zarya is meant for. You just play safe in the early game. Don't worry about things too much. And guys, this is a high ranked Hero League game. So it may seem a little weird, but like people are suiciding a lot. But that just happens in every rank of Hero League. Felipe, for example, the Kel'Thuzad player on the enemy team, is a Grandmaster Kel'Thuzad player, and he's one of the top players. I'll actually pull up the leaderboard really quick on Hotslogs while we're waiting. And again, I'm still just kind of fast forwarding through some of this, but I do want to pull this up just for a second because I want to show you guys what I'm talking about. So, where is... Okay. So, for example, the player that is number 5, Felipe, is who I'm going against right now. Sorry, Felipe, he has 2 different accounts, and they're both his accounts. This is his Smurf, this is his main account. And he plays enough Kel'Thuzad to get Grandmaster on both accounts, and it is incredible how he has that, he holds those scores. Anyways, so as we start getting past the early game, you notice that we had a pretty rough team fight there, and it's tough because the enemies are staying ahead of us in experience. I'm doing my best to try to help out, but you can only do so much, especially when they're taking a lot of structures and towers and all that. Sorry, I didn't show you guys. I barely got out for material, but the Azmodan's getting stacked. Felipe on the Kel'Thuzad has already gotten stacked. So we're going to be in a really rough scenario pretty soon. And in terms of deaths, we already have someone with 4 deaths. We've got our white man has 2 deaths. I have a death. Overall, we're not doing so hot this game. And they take a lot of things. I kind of tell my team to stop suiciding. Yes, that's a little bit toxic. But I would really be happy with them just soaking for the rest of the game, because I counter 2 people on the enemy team. And if we can just get to the late game, I should be able to help it to where we win every single team fight. And that's really my primary goal here, is to do whatever I can to get my team to these later fights. So you see I kind of just whiff an ult there, and it was kind of more of a... we say this is a meme a lot, but it was a zoning ult. I was trying to zone out this direction so that they would go up this way, and then we could chase them the long direction, but it doesn't end up working out. As you can see, whenever Azmodan fires off his globe, it's immediately blocked by a shield from me, while I'll usually stay in it, and then if any of my allies is about to get hit by it, I'll throw a shield ally onto them as well, making it to where the majority of his globes usually don't do anything. The next thing that I try to do is keep my team alive by putting shields in anything that they have that's predictable. We go for a few camps. This fight in particular is a very fascinating fight, as these are the fights that Zarya really likes, where there's pretty obvious predictable damage, as well as the enemies fighting in a cluster that I can get a lot of value off of my particle grenade as well as my graviton surge. So I immediately use some particle grenades, a graviton surge, pull everyone together, and I just stand in the way of a lot of damage, popping my W to keep everyone alive. One quick Q finishes off the Ana. Oh wait, no, here it is. One quick Q finishes off the Ana, followed by the extra damage. I put a shield onto the white main, which Q, followed by a little bit of an auto attack, finishes off the Azmodan as well. You can kind of see how these fights are starting to go in our favor, as we can kind of plan out how we take these fights. And again, a Q right there helps to finish off the Falstad. By the way, I am going the Q build, and I'll explain a little bit as we're fast forwarding through these next few fights. Now, I will say that my team's been doing something that is not what I really like. Whenever we win a fight, my team tends to just keep wanting to fight, and they usually die right afterwards. The fights I decide to not take are the ones that we usually end up... like, the fights I don't want to take, we usually end up losing. And I kind of learn what's causing us to lose as we start getting after this objective. I kind of take a peek at it. Anyways, so to talk about my build a little bit, in my honest opinion, there are 2 to 3 variations of Zarya builds. The first variation is the Q build, and the Q build really uses... It only changes with your level 1, 7, and possibly level 20 talents. Your level 1 talent, you have Demolition's Expert to lower the cooldown, increase the radius. Your level 7, you have the Pinpoint Accuracy, which will make it to where you do more damage with your Q, and it seems like that's low, 50 damage. Except for that's multiplied by 3 if you can get fully charged. So it's actually 150 extra damage on an ability that you have a relatively low cooldown on. This is where I learned how we're losing these fights, is when we're sticking together, I can mitigate almost all the damage the enemies are doing. But when the enemies can zone out my team, then they can pretty much kill anyone they want to and take us out. Continuing on with the Q build, the Grenadier is the last piece that you could get if you really want to, only if you just need the damage and you're not worried about the survivability or anything else. Then Grenadier is a decent option to just add to the extra damage. Is that the option that I'm going to be picking in this game? No. Even though I am going Q build, the Unyielding Defender is really what I wanted to get. I'm going to fast forward through my death again. I'll just keep it at ×2. The other build that I recommend is Maximum Charge. 20 more energy means 40% more damage from your ability. Just means it scales a little bit more, so it's effectively just a lot more damage and a really powerful tool. It's also pretty easy to get stacked up. So I really like Maximum Charge if I'm not planning on going the Q build. And if I'm not going the Q build, then I'm going to be picking up the Explosive Barrier. It's 180 damage at this level, but again, you multiply that by 3, and that's the damage that you're going to be looking at. So it ends up just being a large chunk of damage. Level 16, I pretty much always go Gain Train. Giving shields to 2 different people is the reason why I'm picking Zarya, is to mitigate the damage of mages. So if I can mitigate the damage of mages, and you can see a nice combo there where I use the Graviton Surge to take out the Ana, then we take a really bad team fight here, and we end up, again, this is kind of my problem a lot of times this game, where we get a good fight, and then we get a bad fight, and then we get a good fight, and once again, they stayed too long, they died again. We keep taking fights that are bad, despite the fact that we don't need to be taking any of these fights. I go back to soaking as I am the solo laner. My goal is to keep the soak up for the team. So at level 16, Gain Train's just really, really good, but you can cleanse your allies with the Cleansing Shield, and you can also cleanse yourself with the Unstoppable Competitor in case the enemy team has a lot of CC. But generally, I like Gain Train. It just gives you a lot of the tools you need to really just win just about anything. And I'll slow down the fast forward a little bit as we start reaching some of these fights. I can really just blow people up with my Q whenever I need to. So on to the level 4 talent. The Give Me 20, in my opinion, is one of my favorite talents just in terms of numbers. You get lowered cooldowns and a giant shield. But Speed Barrier is just one of the best talents in the game, and it's extremely underrated in low ranks, while people will make fun of you if you don't pick it in high ranks. It's that good. It makes you faster than mount speed, and you're going to see me use this even for mounted allies to give them that extra speed to catch up to an enemy. For example, there's one particular fight where I give movement speed to a Nubarok, and we catch someone who's out of position, and that person ends up leading us to getting pretty far ahead. So I'm going to slow down just about everything now because I really want to show you that we can mitigate almost all the damage of the enemy team comp by just being Zarya. That's pretty much all we have to do. We now have double shields that we can give to anyone. You're going to see when I use these cooldowns. I really want to share this and show you guys when I use them and why I use them. This fight's pretty bold. We're all pretty split. We don't know exactly where everyone's going, and they do have someone who's on our side, so this is pretty risky. That's why I'm kind of playing it safe. I'm letting him go over there because he has an escape, I don't. And that's one of the real weaknesses that Zarya has, is that she doesn't have an escape, so you really need to make sure you're playing this out really well. I'll pop a Graviton out just to do some damage to Tyrael, but just kind of snipe the little turret from him. We do end up taking him out. I should be able to keep everyone alive here with my shields. And we're good to go. You're going to start noticing that while we were down by something like 9 kills at one point, you're going to notice that we start catching up very quickly as the enemies can't really do damage as long as I'm near my team. All of their damage is in short bursts, and in those short bursts, I tend to have shields for it. So as long as we stick together, we win just about every team fight now, and I don't need to really worry about anything. So really, to go down the builds, the build that I like, if you need to pick people off from a range, like say you don't have a Genji or anything that can finish people off, I like going Q Quest here, the Q talent here. But in every other scenarios, my build's going to look like this. Maximum Charge at 1, followed by Speed Barrier at 4, followed by Explosive Barrier at 7, into Expulsion Zone, unless I have a Wombo combo. If I don't, this is an easy way to steal camps, as well as gain value off of team fights, as it does a lot of scaling damage. Pain is Temporary is almost always my go-to when I feel like I might get focused, followed by Gain Train allows me to save my team whenever the enemies have a lot of splash damage. If they don't have a lot of splash damage, Cleansing Shield can be a nice way to clear up things, or Born in Battle to keep your cooldowns going very fast. And then finally, level 20, Unyielding. If you're not going the demolitions build, you should always go unyielding. Now, even if you are going the demolitions build, if you pick Zarya as a counter pick, you're probably still going to want unyielding defender. So I put shields on a couple people, we jump in, I use a shield on myself, and then I kind of just stay in the fight as much as possible. I use unyielding to toss another shield onto the Alarak, giving him the extra movement speed to get out, as well as keeping everyone at full health. It's enough to really get out and keep everyone alive, as well as get us back onto the objective, full health, without any worry of anything else. So that's essentially where we're at with that. I don't really want to fight again for 40 seconds. I kind of used everything to save my team the first time around, and I would rather not have to use it the second time around. I immediately put a shield on him because he's about to take a lot of damage from a combo. He ends up dodging it, so we're in a pretty good position. However, now the NotParadox in a bad area, so I try to take steps up so I can take some of the hits for the team. I still have Pain as temporary to survive any major amount of damage, because I can use my shield, the Pain is temporary, and then my shield again, giving myself a ridiculous amount of survivability. Again, I just try to get auto attack damage off whenever I can, but generally with Zarya, your main damage is going to be, if you are in this build, it's going to be your Qs. I give him a shield first, and then I immediately use Unyielding to give him another shield, and between that, it was enough to keep him alive long enough for Whitemane to give him a giant heal. And that's enough that pretty much saved him throughout all of that, so 2 different sets of shields. Almost 2,000 health worth of shielding to save that person. We then hop in this, and we take it all the way up, taking out all 3 of these points. From here, as this is about to end, we will... I believe it is. Alright, there we go. It's getting close. But you can start to see why I pick Zarya into Kel'Thuzad and into Azmodan. Is all their damage is predictable, and it's very easy to... And once again, you saw I shielded myself twice, I shielded the Alarak twice, and guess what? We can take out just about anyone we want to, because there's nothing they can do about it. All of their damage is mitigated. We're essentially fighting a 3v5 now. And it's actually almost a... And again, he just kind of goes in and dies. If they stay near me for team fights, we win almost every team fight. I tell my team to get back here purely because I don't actually like the amount of damage we have. And while the Whitemane, I was able to keep her alive through a decent chunk of that, it wasn't quite enough to be worth it. We did use some ults. I used the Azmodan to get charged up. That's why I said it's kind of a 4v6. Or a 3v6 anyways, because they're giving me more damage. So while they're not doing anything this game, they're actually helping us more than they are hurting us. So I'd love you guys to actually think of Zarya as a powerful counter pick and possibly a solo laner. Just be careful about picking her on a map like Braxis, where you might not necessarily have you won't be winning the solo lane, and in the solo lane your E is essentially useless. So you have one dead ability in the solo lane, but as you reach the late game, you can pretty much keep people alive through just about anything. Right here, I wanted to share this particular moment as I use a shield to give him more movement speed, and we can see the extra movement speed that Falstad has because he picked up the talent at this level that makes it to where barrel roll gives him 60% more movement speed. So he uses a barrel roll, gets the extra movement speed, and even with that decaying movement speed, the NotParadox is able to get the movement speed I give from him and get the ult off onto the Falstad. This is a key moment, actually, because we are able to get in a really interesting team fight here, purely because we're able to take one person that's heavily out of position. I've already used my shield to give him movement speed, so I have to use the Unyielding Defender to give another shield onto the Whitemane. So you can see this giant full combo from an Azmodan, or from a Kel'Thuzad, doesn't do anything because we just simply use the shield. I use my ult to make sure that we get the kill off on the person that we already committed one ult into. And then we use our abilities to take out this. Now, my problem here is, once again, my team likes to take fights that I'm not around. So as we're winning this and we've already gotten a kill here and wasted their items, they decide to go in. They get one kill at the cost of one kill. Unfortunately, the kill that they get on us removes the stacks of our Alarak that he just got from taking out the Falstad. From this point, I put shields on myself and the Anubarak. I survive this, and I use the pain as temporary because I actually thought that I got hit from the chain, and the chain was going to hit someone. So I use the pain as temporary to get this giant shield, and it does use all of my energy, though. Once again, I just use a shield. The Azmodan doesn't do anything, and we are still dominating. So while we were down by something like 9 kills, now we're up by 2 kills, and the enemies literally can't do anything to us. So we pretty much just guarantee win any of the rest objectives as long as the team doesn't get too far out. So I give some movement speed, and we kind of just go in from there. We do pick up a kill, and I'm deciding if I want to put an ult down here. I decide not to, and instead I just use my Q to finish off this, what's his name? And so I use a Q to kill him, followed by a Q to kill the Kel'Thuzad. And in terms of damage, if you look at it, it's not bad. I mean, the greatest part about this whole thing is their whole team's doing way more damage than we're doing. Yet if you look at my shielding, I'm shielding. I mean, that's damage taken, which is still incredible. I'm taking 104,000 damage, and my deaths are the second lowest in the game, despite taking that much damage. But I'm also adding 31,000 shielding to the team. So while they're doing a lot more damage, the problem is that it's all being wasted because it's just getting shielded now in the late game. And you got to remember, I wasn't farming this in the early game because I was in the solo lane. So now almost all of that shielding is in the late game when it actually matters. And we kind of just dominate from here. There's not too much else we need to get into. The Falstad takes out the Kael'thas, and then they take out the Falstad, and I just hang out here. I don't actually want to drive this, because if I drive this, we lose team fights. But I decide, you know what, we're just going to drive it. I know a lot of people are going to see that Azmodan left the game and then rejoined. He left at level 22 and came back at 24. Not a lot happened from the Azmodan from that point. And again, it didn't really matter because I can shield through all of Azmodan's damage. So the other reason why I really like Zarya is as the game gets late, Zarya is one of the best people for sieging structures because you can just keep shielding everyone and yourself, and you can siege through just about everything. So you're going to see that while my team actually pings us to get back, or they might say it in voice chat, I can't remember, but they say to get back here, I say no. Like, I literally just keep pushing forward because I know we can end the game. So do you see Alarak dies, and Alarak's like, no, go back, guys, go back. We've got to get back. I literally was just like, nope, let's just keep pushing. So right as I start taking some damage, I can keep my abilities charged up, and I use my unyielding to keep them shielded. I use my shield. I use my ult to just zone them out. I don't really actually care about getting a kill here. I'm more focused on getting the core, and I can shield everyone, and I still have pain as temporary, which I don't even need. So that's essentially that. I'm going to stop it there, and I don't want to feel like I'm calling out Alarak. I've played with him before. He's a pretty good player. He just had a pretty bad game with 10 deaths. But their Tyrael near the late game was also dying, and the same thing. Their Tyrael, I've played with him before. He's a pretty good tank. So I just really wanted to share that a little bit. I just kind of wanted to explain that we're going against one of the best Kel'Thuzad players in North America, someone with a 55 to 65% win rate on Kel'Thuzad in Grandmasters, and we kind of just made him feel useless by the late game. Now, they were dominating in hero damage this entire game, but as we reached the late game, it felt like they were doing nothing. And it's because every time they tried to do their damage, it was shielded, and then it was healed up whatever wasn't actually shielded. All in all, this is why I pick Zarya. This is why I love Zarya against these particular people. And I just feel like if you put her in the 4-man, you're going to be lacking damage in the 4-man, and you're going to get nothing done. But if you put her in the solo lane, you're not lacking anything because the solo lane is usually just whatever else you kind of needed anyways. And that's why I just love playing her in the solo lane as opposed to anything else. And if you look at the damage, I mean, I was almost up to the same damage as my damage dealers on my team. I was only 16,000 away from beating the Kael'thas and only 10,000 away from beating the Alarak, while I was, I mean, a huge amount over everyone else. Now, the Tyrael was doing a considerable amount of damage as well. I mean, their whole team was doing a considerable amount of damage, but it was just kind of mitigated. Like when the damage actually mattered, it was just completely mitigated, which is really what I wanted to show everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know, have you used Zarya with success recently? Is that a hero that you guys want to learn more about? I can show you some of the other builds that I play on her if you really want, but generally I played one of the builds and I explained the other build. But to kind of explain a little bit of my win rates with Zarya, while I don't play her very much, you can see in Hero League, 80% win rate, in Hero League and Team League, 75% win rate, and in Unranked, 65%. I just dominate with her. She's just one of those heroes that is fun to play and just hard counters so many people that are really annoying to play against. So in low ranks, when you see all these Asmodans all the time, and your team's like, oh, they got Asmodan, it's game over, you got to be like, nah, I got this. Pick that Zarya, lock it in, and just go turn that Asmodan off for the rest of the game. And if you're ever against a Kel'Thuzad and you know they're going to be dominating this game, pick that Zarya, lock it in, and just completely counter that Kel'Thuzad. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to hit that subscribe, the bell next to it to be notified whenever I bring out new videos, and feel free to check out any of my other videos. Thanks again.